What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is your first time on the channel. This is a part of a series where I focus on a specific director and I rank the filmography from worst to best. This doesn't include music videos, short films, or TV shows, just their films. I've done such directors as David Lynch, David Fincher, Paul Thomas Anderson, Tim Burton, the list goes on. You can check that down on my playlist down below. But guys, you clicked on the video, so you know it. This time I'm doing Denis Villeneuve's films ranked worst to best. He's done 9 films, and actually this time around I am joined by a fellow YouTuber, and this is Adam from V.I.B'Z. Adam subscribed to me a couple months ago, and he reached out, said he wanted to collaborate. I was very happy to accommodate him, and I'm glad that he was able to help me out with just really dissecting Denis Villeneuve's films in a ranking list. So what he's going to do is he's going to give his 9 to 5, and then I'm going to give my 9 to 5, and then he'll give his 4 to 1, and I'll give my 4 to 1 as well, and then we'll wrap things up. But all that exposition aside, take it away, Adam.
Thank you, Chad, for having me on your channel. My name is Adam from the YouTube channel V.I.B'Z, and today I'm going to be ranking the 9 directorial outings for Denis Villeneuve. At number 9, I went with August 32nd on Earth. It's his first feature-length film, and I think it had a really creative idea going for it. One of the things I did really appreciate about this movie was the comedy. I thought it was quite funny. I'm also French-Canadian, so I always appreciate a film in my native language. I think the plot kind of falls apart and feels just tonally like it doesn't match Denis' style at all. It's more like the type of plot that you'd see a young Wes Anderson type trying to tackle. But, I mean, regardless, it still wasn't a bad film, I don't think. Maybe an average film at best with a great premise behind it. So, that being said, I think I'd probably give it around a 5 out of 10. At number 8, we have Maelstrom, which was his second feature made in the year 2000. Not too much to say about this one. Again, it's another premise that just doesn't seem like it fits tonally with what we know Denis is capable of now. One thing I did really enjoy about the movie was the framing device of the fish being butchered, who narrates the film, which I thought was really interesting. The tone was not nearly as lighthearted as I would have liked. And so, again, another average movie, another about a 5 out of 10 movie. From 7 to 1, we get into, I think, all really great movies. And at number 7, I have just the lowest of those great films, which was 2015's Sicario. Roger Deakins did the cinematography for this movie, and you can really tell, even though I'm not a huge fan of the overly yellow color palette, you have to admit that Roger Deakins did a lot with what he had in order to make a simple crime drama story, which can usually get kind of grating and kind of frustrating because we do see a lot of them, and make it something kind of original and unique, plot-wise and pacing-wise. It's really, really well done. Didn't find it as memorable as a lot of the other films. I thought on a character level, it wasn't quite as good, but all that being said, it's still a really great movie, and I would give it probably a strong 7 to a light 8 out of 10. At number 6, Polytechnique, which I thought was really, really surprising. I was very impressed by Polytechnique, mostly because it's quite low budget, like his first 2, shot in black and white in Canada in 2009. I like what it says about society and the pressures put on certain people and how hate can develop from small places. Really enjoyed it. I think it is one of his stronger features. 8 out of 10 for me, for sure. Strong, solid 8. So at number 5, Enemy. I don't think it's as complicated thematically as some people give it credit for. I do think it's really, really interesting. I think it's really, really entertaining. And it's definitely a movie that's worth watching more than once, which is another thing that I really appreciate about it. Jake Gyllenhaal's really, really great in the two, I guess, star performances. And I just find it really thematically interesting. And yeah, it's a great film. I highly recommend Enemy. That's my number 5. A solid 8 out of 10 again for me.
All right, thank you very much, Adam. So, my turn. So, number 9 for me is actually the same as Adam's, and that is August 32nd on Earth. This movie, if someone had said was directed by Denis Villeneuve and I hadn't looked up this movie as a part of filmography, I wouldn't have known that this was directed by him. It doesn't have any of the visual flares or really themes and messages. This is something that feels very much so different. Look, if someone likes this movie, that's fine, but I don't know, for me personally, I was just kind of disappointed by it. That's why it's my number 9. So my number 8 next up is Maelstrom, which was actually the latest movie of his that I saw before I was able to say, oh, I've seen all of his movies. Maelstrom, I like the narration idea that it's being narrated by a fish, and I think ultimately the outcome of that narration was interesting. I just think overall, besides the beginning and ending, I think everything in between just was kind of, again, not really something that you would think a director like of his caliber would do, but it wasn't bad. It was just kind of middle of the road for me personally. But yeah, that's my number 8. My number 7 is where we get into where I'm able to say, yes, this is the Denis Villeneuve that we know. And that is my number 7, which is Polytechnique. My friend Ryan actually let me borrow this movie about a year ago on Blu-ray, which I was glad that he did because I otherwise would have probably watched it in like a lesser format. So to watch it on Blu-ray, it was nice, honestly. This is definitely a movie where it's like, it's hard to watch, but it's definitely something that was ahead of its time because it's dealing with incel culture. And incel culture really didn't really hit the mainstream until the last couple of years, I feel like. So it was kind of ahead of its time in that, right? And then at the same time, I thought it was a very unique approach. And Denis Villeneuve's directing it was pretty good, I would say. But yeah, it's my number 7. My number 6 is the movie that a lot of people, including Adam, has this movie up a lot higher. My number 6 is Incendies. Look, I think this movie's good. I do. I understand why a lot of people love this movie, and I guarantee you in the comment section a lot of people are going to have this in their top 3. I get it, and I know a lot of people are going to ask why I don't love this movie. I just feel like maybe it's because I've only seen it one time. I think that whilst the filmmaking is good, and I think that the twist was nifty, I just overall felt like I didn't have much of an impact afterwards. You know, all the other movies of his, I had a really big impact. I mean, heck, even Polytechnique, I had more of an impact than Incendies. And I think maybe it's because Incendies I saw 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe I should rewatch. Maybe that will change some things. But as of right now, I just haven't really had that urge to. You know, maybe in a couple years, maybe, who knows, like a couple days after filming this, maybe I'll rewatch it. But for right now, it's just something that I didn't have an emotional attachment to the way I do with his other films. And I think that's something that you can't really change the way you obviously have like an emotional grip on a movie or not. And that's just kind of like my take on this movie. I think the filmmaking's good. I don't really have any qualms with it, other than it just didn't really affect me the way a lot of people, such as you guys, were, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my number 6. Next up is my number 5, which is Enemy. Oh, I love this movie, man. You want to talk about emotional impact? This movie, man. It's cold, it's calculating, but it gets the job done. I personally really dig this movie. It's very underrated. I love the yellow urine-esque cinematography. I think it's really effective. I think the symbolism, the messages really hit home. And Jake Gyllenhaal, man, he gives a dual performance that's really good. Very underrated. And truth be told, it's only 90 minutes long. Goes by really fast. Not for your average viewer for sure, but if you're a thinking person, definitely give it a shot. So yeah, it's my number 5. So, being that as my number 5, let's kick it over to Adam to give his number 4 to 1.
And at number 4, it was hard to choose between a few of these because I like all of them a lot. But at number 4, I'm going to go with Arrival, concentrating on a linguist and Amy Adams who is trying to decipher the alien language. I enjoy just how niche that is and how much time they spend just developing that small bit, because I think lots of times in sci-fi movies, they try to work with these big premises and they do too much and they leave too many loose ends. Here we get a very, very solid and concrete plot. There is some stuff with the time travel aspects of the story that do go off the rails and do leave some open ends, but I think it's within the realm of acceptability. A few scenes near the beginning also that I didn't enjoy so much. I thought it was kind of like a little cheesy with the whole relationship with the daughter and certain ways that was framed within the editing. I really, really like the score as well. A very, very solid science fiction score. Yeah, I think this one's a strong 8 to a light 9, probably a strong 8. Number 3, we have one of my favorites of the year. It came out in 2013, which was Prisoners. Probably the most well-performed movie in Denis Villeneuve's catalog. Jake Gyllenhaal, again. You have Hugh Jackman, who's really strong in the lead role. Paul Dano, in another role, who's just, who just plays it perfectly without much dialogue at all. Just a simple disappearance case with these two kids. I've seen this movie a couple of times, and each time I watch it, I find more things to appreciate about it. Definitely mostly in the pacing. Again, Denis is very, very good at his plot structure, story structure. Everything with pacing and story is just really, really well done. The plot gets a little convoluted near the third act, but again, suspension of disbelief. It's not enough to make it a big issue for me. It's just a great film. I would give it a 9 out of 10. At number 2 is one of the Denis Villeneuve movies I think would probably be most popular. Was a big deal when it came out, which is Blade Runner 2049. Absolutely love this movie. I think this is a landmark in terms of sci-fi filmmaking, and one that probably even beats out the original with this sequel, which I was not expecting at all. Best thing about it is the visuals. There's just so much that they do with color, giant landscapes. They somehow made Jared Leto an interesting character and a fun villain, which I'm surprised by because I very rarely am impressed with a Jared Leto performance. Ryan Gosling is perfect for this type of role. We see like in movies like Drive that he does good with roles where he has not too much dialogue and he can really play off of that. One thing with this movie is that I've seen some people complain about is maybe the pacing, because there is so little dialogue and it is such a long runtime, and they spend lots of time with these long airy shots, but that just adds to this sense of atmosphere in the movie that I think really, really works, and you need that type of slow burn pacing to work with. And yeah, just like the whole movie is just like this visual feast. Really well constructed, really smartly done, really intelligent, and again, another really solid 9 out of 10 movie for me. Denis Villeneuve's strongest film by far would be number 1, Incendie. This was his movie in 2010 that he made, sort of the bridge between his Hollywood career and his early French-Canadian career. I love the way the plot works in order to continually move towards this twist without completely relying on the twist of the film. I obviously won't spoil the twist of the film. It's punchy and it grabs you, and in some senses you saw it coming and in other senses you didn't, and it just wraps the movie around perfectly. Again, story structure, plot, things that I've already been talking about, pacing. He does all these really, really well, and this film especially. But the other thing is it doesn't rely on that to the point where you couldn't watch the movie again. On a writing level, I think it's easily his strongest film. I think it's the best screenplay that he's ever worked with. Just really great sound design on this one too. Some really interesting choices with camera movement and direction that I really appreciated. And yeah, I gotta give it to Incendie at number 1. That's a solid 9 out of 10. I'm really excited to see Dune next year. I was hoping to see it this year in October. Sadly, I'm gonna have to see it next year in October, but that's all right. And thank you, Chad, for having me in the video and allowing me to participate in this series of yours. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam, for giving your 4 to 1. So with my number 4, we're going to be getting off with Sicario. So Sicario is a movie that I own actually on 4K. Haven't seen it as of the filming of this video yet on 4K, but it used to sit on Blu-ray, and I decided to keep the slipcover because it didn't come with the slipcover in 4K. But I love this movie. What can I say? I think that this movie is very underrated. I know it got a couple Oscar nominations when it first came out, but I think the filmmaking is what really elevates the movie. It's something that the craft can be seen a mile away. I mean, there's a lot of care that went into this movie. I think the themes and messages are very important. That ending just, I will never forget the first time I saw it. Every time I do watch it, that ending really sticks to me. I think it's a very strong film. I think it's a film, if you haven't seen, would definitely highly recommend. I think this is the film where a lot of mainstream members really took notice to Denis Villeneuve. Not me, though. We'll get into that in a couple films from now. But yeah, that's my number 4. My number 3 is Arrival. This movie changed my life, honestly. When I saw it back in 2016, 2016 there was a lot of movies that were just disappointing, generic, overall a futile experience. I honestly kind of questioned if I still loved movies just because of, the overall feeling I had. But Arrival came out later on in the year, and it felt like such a breath of fresh air. It feels like a groundbreaking film because it's such a different perspective on this genre. You know, you watch the trailer and automatically think about it being sci-fi and dealing with aliens. You automatically think weapons and everything, but lo and behold, it's actually a movie about linguistics, the importance of communication, and features incredible acting and a mind-boggling twist. So I think it's honestly a very underrated movie. I know that Denis Villeneuve got a lot of attention in terms of his directing with this movie, which obviously he deserved. I love this movie. I think that it's so shocking, yet also hopeful for me, the fact that this movie got so much attention when it came out, and still people talk about it. So I love it. I'm glad that it's getting a lot of attention even to this day, and I hopefully see it being as like a classic years from now, because I can definitely see myself watching it over and over again, as I already have several times. But yeah, it's my number 3. Next up, my number 2 is a film that I saw 4 times in theaters, a couple times on Blu-ray, and once or twice on 4K, and that is Blade Runner 2049. This is bound to be a sci-fi modern classic for good reasons. It's a great film that rivals the original. Don't know just yet which I like better, just because I've seen Blade Runner a lot more, but I can definitely see myself watching this movie over and over again. You know, it's lengthy for sure, but it definitely gives a lot of room to like really revel in the, you know, mood of the film, and honestly the tone and pacing I think overall really work, and I love the twists and turns that this movie has, as well as just the refusal to be a film that is setting up a sequel. It's a film that stands on its own, whilst at the same time, if you have happened to have seen the original Blade Runner, it works even better. So my number 2, I love Blade Runner 2049. Alright, so I mentioned earlier about how Sicario was the film that put Denis Villeneuve on the, you know, the track of like a lot of people where it's like, oh, this filmmaker, holy cow, like, you know. But for myself, as I mentioned, there was another movie, and for me, that was my number 1, which is Prisoners. I love this film. I saw this film in December of 2013, and it really affected me. It really honestly changed my outlook on films. It was definitely one of those films. But look, after I saw Prisoners, whenever I saw like films, I was always on the lookout from the director of Prisoners. And it just so happened that around the time when Sicario came out and they dropped the trailer, they had it where it was like from the director of Prisoners, and I was like, all right, that's him, I'm watching it. So for me, it was 2013 onwards. If I saw Denis Villeneuve, I was going to watch it. That started with Prisoners. Prisoners, I think, is a masterpiece, truth be told. I think it's a very subtle movie. It's a very moody movie. It's very well shot. It has a lot to really nourish. It's a meaty film. There's a lot to really digest on this movie. And again, just like a lot of Denis Villeneuve's other movies, I think the ending is really captivating, with really bringing in tune to that ambiguous ending. And overall, I also like the nihilistic tone that the movie has, because a lot of people look at the ending as like happy. I 100% disagree. But it's a great movie. It's very well acted, very well shot, as I already mentioned. The score is very haunting. But yeah, I love Prisoners. I know a lot of people probably have it a little bit down on the list. Definitely not number 1. But what can I say? It's not only the film that introduced me to this filmmaker, but it is also the film that cemented it as, look, I absolutely love these kind of movies. Like these kind of movies that really make you think and just kind of question your morality. I don't know. And I think Denis Villeneuve, you know, his other movies have definitely had that, you know, similarly, and like Sicario and Blade Runner 2049, but I think that this is his best film in those regards, of really making you think. You know, not discrediting those movies. Again, I love those movies too, but, you know, still love this movie even more. But, that's my list, guys. Again, Adam, thank you very much for being on the channel. I really appreciate it, as well as your support. Guys, subscribe to his channel. I'm going to leave a link down below. And I'm looking to do, you know, obviously some more ranking lists in the future. But yeah, guys, again, thank you very much for watching. And don't forget to put your list down below of Denis Villeneuve's films ranked. And as always, if you're new to the channel, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.